I'd like to welcome up on the stage 4 of the jury members who will share a bit of their experience. From Malaysia, Balakrishnan. And from South Africa, Trevyn McGowan. From the United Kingdom, Jack Horner. And from the United States, Kavita Shukla. Now, each panelist will have no more than 5 minutes to please introduce yourselves, why you're here, what your experiences are, and tell a bit about what challenges that face everyone in this room as budding entrepreneurs. Kavita Shukla from the United States, you'll be allowed to start here, founder and CEO of Fenugreen.
Sure. Should we just stay here? Great.
Feel free to
maybe
stand,
I'll
sit,
up. Yeah.
whatever you prefer.
These seats are quite shaky. I think I brought some photos, so I don't know if you're able to pull them up. But so I'm the founder of Fenugreen, and Fenugreen is working to address a massive, yet often overlooked global challenge with a really simple idea that we believe could change the way we eat. It looks like this. You can see it on the screen now, too. It's just a piece of paper, and it has a really distinctive maple-like scent. And that scent indicates that the paper is active. Now, you're probably wondering, what does it even mean for a piece of paper to be active? What it means is that if you just put this sheet into a refrigerator drawer, thank you, a carton, or a bag filled with different fruits and vegetables, the produce in there would stay fresh for 2 to 4 times longer. If you've ever opened a fridge to find really moldy strawberries or a bag of soggy spinach, you know how frustrating and expensive and disgusting food spoilage can be. But this paper is not only designed for use by consumers like you and me. Because it's so simple and low cost, it can actually be used by large growers and producers, as well as in the developing world. I was shocked to find out just a couple years ago that we actually lose 1/4 of our world's entire food supply to spoilage. That was something I never knew. And that 1.6 billion people still today, with all the technology we have, live without access to even basic refrigeration. While the world's farmers actually harvest enough food to feed the planet, 800 million people go hungry every single day. So food waste is a massive global problem, but it's trash. It's not something that's very interesting, and it's not something that people really like to talk about. So Fenugreen is trying to bring creativity in design to not only bring attention to this, but also to potentially start to address it. And fresh paper, because of its paper format, can actually be used on the entire journey from when food is first harvested until it arrives on your plate. And it's a sustainable solution that could actually massively reduce food waste and the massive energy and resource costs associated with it. But it actually all started here. I think this is a picture of me with my grandmother. This is me when I was a toddler living in India. And shortly after this, I immigrated to the United States. But once when I was in middle school in 7th grade, I went to visit my grandma, and I accidentally drank some tap water while brushing my teeth. And as you probably know, you're really not supposed to drink the water. So I started to panic. I was so worried that I would get sick. And my grandma made this murky brown mixture. She went in the kitchen and pulled up all these different herbs and spices. And she said, "Oh, just drink this, and you'll be fine." And I was really skeptical looking at this. But I tried it, and I didn't get sick. And that's how I became really curious about the different herbs and spices that my grandma had used, and why her seemingly magic mixture might have worked. So when I got home to the U.S., I actually started a really simple project. I started it as a middle school science project to learn more. And over the years, I actually ended up finding that some of the spices and herbs in my grandma's mixture were able to stop the growth of different bacteria and fungi that I found around my kitchen at home. And as a kid, I didn't know what I could do with that. But one day I went grocery shopping with my mom, and she asked me to pick out some strawberries. And I remember I kept getting frustrated because in the grocery store, all of the boxes seemed to have some mold growing on the bottom. And that's when I started to wonder, what would happen if I dipped strawberries in my mixture. I tried it, and the results were incredible. And then I went out and got many different fruits and vegetables, and I think I have a photo here of another one. And I couldn't believe it. It really worked. And so I started to think about bringing fresh paper to people as a nonprofit. And I started to work on creating the product to really get it to those people who needed it most. And I failed terribly. For years, I tried to figure out production and distribution. And I started to finally understand how hard it could be to give something away for free. But I couldn't stop working on it and thinking about it. And in 2010, my co-founder, who's here in the front row, and I, we started all over with Fenugreen as a social enterprise. And we started by going to local farmers markets and setting up a stall just like this one, where we would just hand make batches and hand them out to people. And, we really had no idea what to expect, but what happened after the first few times we handed it out was something that was incredible to us, which was that people started approaching us with their personal stories and telling us about how fresh paper had really changed the way they could eat. And we heard all kinds of things we could have never imagined, but the most inspiring for us to hear was that they felt that fresh paper was making it possible for them to afford eating healthy, fresh food on a daily basis. And that was incredibly inspiring for us because we realized that with a small sheet of paper, we were having an impact on our local food system. And we started to think a little bit bigger. Our mission today is fresh for all, and we are striving towards a world in which access to fresh fruits and vegetables is not limited by distribution systems and cold chains, and one in which everyone from farmers to food banks can use innovations like fresh paper to make our food system not only more sustainable, but more accessible. And when we actually started just 2 years ago, we had no funding, we had no marketing budget, and no experience, but through word of mouth only and through sort of an army of grassroots supporters, fresh paper actually spread to stores across the entire United States. And today we ship to farmers and families across the globe every single day. But just a few weeks ago, we announced the launch of our Get One, Give One initiative, where for every single pack of fresh paper that's now purchased, we actually donate a pack to a local food bank. And starting next year, we'll be donating packs to those in need across the world. You can imagine how small-scale farmers in the developing world and school lunch programs could really benefit from something like this. So, today I often think about what would have happened if I hadn't drank my grandma's mixture. And, what if I had never given my idea another chance? What if I had given up all those times that someone told me I couldn't do it? So as I look at all of you, it's very inspiring to hear your stories because what I've come to realize is that simple ideas can be really powerful and really disruptive because they are truly the ones that can spread very quickly and easily to people everywhere. So that's a little bit of a background on me.
Carry on. Okay. Hi, my name is Jack Horner, and I'm the creative director and founder of a creative agency called FRUKT. And I'll tell you quickly kind of where it came from. It's always difficult following such a brilliant presentation when it's socially right on. And I am a marketeer, and we make money and we do marketing campaigns for people. So we are at the very kind of commercial end. I'm not saying you're not commercial, but we are strictly commercial. We're all about growing a business and doing great marketing. And but there is a cause behind this. There is a philosophy behind this. I was a musician first and foremostly, and I used to work for some of the major record groups back in the 90s and manage bands and stuff like that. And what we realized was that the world of entertainment, starting with music, was tanking. It was in trouble. The digital economy has changed all the rules, and it's very difficult to figure out how to make money a reliable source of income in the world of music. And the same issues that music has, of course, hit the literary industry and the movie industry and all sorts of other anything that can be digitized becomes at risk. And what we realized was that there's a need for people to have access to entertainment and culture. There's a basic kind of human need to be entertained, and whether it's laughter or design or comedy and laughter or film or music, people deserve to have access to this stuff. and the private sector want to be loved. So there's this interesting relationship there where consumer brands are desperate to kind of build worlds around their brands that we buy into so that we buy more of their products or become more loyal. And the artists on the other end and the rights owners and the creatives need a way to get their market and their art, their products and their art to market. So what our philosophy is that we try and build better relationships between people who create stuff in the entertainment space and the consumer brands who we like to think of it as invest in it rather than sponsor it or just buy it. So we try and create much more sustainable relationships between the entertainment industry and the artists on the other side. And that's resulted in us creating an agency from scratch. It was me and a buddy of mine that we used to work together at Warner Music. We bought a couple of laptops, and I've got to say, we made it up as we went along. And we never had a business plan. We had something that we called a foundation document that we kind of changed and edited for the first few months and then got bored of doing that. Like, I was just like, this is, we don't know what we're doing yet. We'll figure that out as we go. So the expression is, I think, building an aeroplane as it's flying. I think it's so we tried that, and we're now 75 people in offices around the world. We sold our business this year to one of the biggest advertising networks in the world, into Public Group in the States. And we're agency of record for Coca-Cola globally. We've had a long relationship with Nokia. We work with quite a lot of alcohol companies who invest quite a lot in music and entertainment as well. So we do a lot of festival work. And it's been a great ride, very risky at times, and yet we've never taken any funding. So there were a few things that I was going to say in reflection of the last couple of days to you guys. They're a bit random, so bear with me. But the first one was about funding. I mean, quite a lot of you have come here kind of putting big numbers on the wall and asking for money. As someone who never did that, I can wholly recommend that owning 100% of my company when I sold it was a very good feeling indeed. Don't take money unless you really, really, really need it. And there are definitely some businesses in this room that have no excuse for not being live already. And we've talked about it and the judges. And there's some businesses you don't need money. The only thing that has stopped you from getting your product or your idea out there is you, because it could be out there already. The digital economy has benefited a lot of you guys, and costs are cheaper, and it's there's a real kind of collaborative, particularly in the creative industries. You can get a lot of support from people without having to pay an awful lot of money. So I think being more resourceful and just getting on with it is definitely one piece of advice. The second thing in relation to some of the presentations was about clarity and being really, really clear. I didn't go to business school. I have a bit of a funny feeling when everyone kind of throws their MBAs around the room, and my business partner does, and I joke that he always has to do things in a very certain way because he learned it properly, and I don't really, like Uffe, again, it's the sort of the chaotic school of business is one that I kind of embrace, but being clear is super important. Think about what you're saying, think about how you're presenting it. I wrote that note 2 days ago, and today, I have to say, I think we were blown away with the quality of the presentation. So I think clarity has reigned supreme today, perhaps less so yesterday. So, make sure you've got your story straight and make sure you're super clear about what you want to talk about. And the second thing is be realistic. And there are some occasions in some of the business plans where there's a sort of token SWOT analysis. Here's the threat, but don't worry about them. Apple do it, but ours is slightly better. I'd like to suggest that Apple might be a threat. Okay, so I think being very realistic along the way is very important. And a lot of the business plans could do with getting another pair of eyes to look at them and evaluate whether they really are realistic financials and threats that you've identified and how you deal with them. And the last thing is much more inspirational, I think. Uffe said it a few times. Be brave. You are all brave. I think you've done amazing jobs for standing up here and being grilled by us. I like to think that in my group we were both the good cop, really, weren't we? But some of the other judges, I understand, played the bad cop role. So you did good, and you listened, and you got up there, and you stood proud and tall. And I think you should be very proud of yourselves. We're all entrepreneurs, and I think it's a great feeling to be part of this group and to have hung out with you guys for the last 2 days. So thank you.
I'm going to stand up because I feel a little short behind there, hidden. Hi, my name's Trevyn McGowan, and I'm from South Africa, and I work in design in South Africa, and primarily in getting the idea of South African and Southern and actually African design to the rest of the world. So I'm the founder of Source, which is a company that delivers sort of mainstream product to the big retailers around the world, to the Conran Shop, Anthropology, Jamie Oliver, ABC Carpet and Home, those kind of stores. My husband and I Julian is the founder of Southern Guild, which takes the very, very top end of design, collectible, limited edition design, and sells that to the end user at fairs that are growing in kind of focus and popularity alongside art fairs. So very small, focused galleries selling design alongside the big sort of art fairs. And alongside that, we've set up the Southern Guild Design Foundation, which is aimed at nurturing and growing the industry, both from two tiers, one of recognition for excellence and setting examples for the rest of the industry, and the others with awards for future growth and potential to encourage a whole new generation of designers coming up and to show, you know, what the possibilities are. Through CKU, we're also leaders of Design Network Africa, which is a network built to connect the very best designers around the continent, to share problems, to collaborate, to mentor one another, and again, to bring focus to a very strong identity that African design has, and to educate the world about what the possibilities are for the future. So I was asked to sort of talk a little bit about the problems that we face, and I think that obviously problems are unique perhaps to an area or to an industry, but perhaps those problems, you know, we all face in different ways. So we started, I was living in London still, and we decided on the spur of the moment to move back to South Africa, and I identified that there was this real interest and desire and hunger for design from Southern Africa, and there was this huge wealth of talent, but that it was not reaching each other, and that nobody had really claimed the role of the conduit. And we understood what was needed from the international market because we'd spent 20 years in London working in design, and we were aware of and quickly kind of explored everything that was on offer. We've got a database of over 500 different design companies that we draw resources from in Southern Africa, but that there was no export at all. The design industry was very young, and there was no knowledge of how to become commercial in the product that was being made. So we would see ceramicists, and they would say, this is the most beautiful, unique work, and they'd say, yeah, but I don't know how only if you come and get it from me and put it in the back of your car can I actually let it leave my studio. And so this was in 2003, the last, however long that's been now, 7 or 8 years, 9 years, has been about really moving that industry as an entire industry forward to the point where we're dealing with packaging and logistics and consolidation, information that needs to be ready before you can go to market. So those buyers want a spreadsheet of detail about that product that we have to give them before they'll even consider it. So we've kind of been instrumental in changing that, and then the idea that we've got problems like huge inflation. So electricity can go up 30%, then suddenly another 10%, up to 50% in a single year. How do you keep control of your pricing when there's such a long lead time between presentation and actually getting your product ordered? The exchange rate fluctuates wildly in South Africa because of mining disasters and gold prices. And so, again, that's a factor that how do you stay consistent and seem professional? We're very far away. We've got a very unsophisticated packaging industry. The shipping costs are huge. They're also affected by the fluctuation in exchange rates. So these are all the problems which each of us will have our own issues to deal with. We've got originality and uniqueness in our own voice, but our pricing is very, very high. So how do you communicate that story so that when your product sits in a store alongside a Chinese mass-produced product, that you're giving the value to the end user, that they understand why they would pay 4 times as much for a dinner plate? So, we've had to design how our business works, and that really was the message that sort of when we started working, there was the idea of design versus business. And what we've tried to change that to is design your business. So see it as a creative problem. And that's what I would agree with you in the presentation. Sorry, Dash, I was standing in front of you. I would agree that the presentations that worked the best for us was when you had actually designed the concept to communicate it. And you've got to see all the problems that exist and all of the things that people want to understand and hear very, very quickly, and design a method for solving the problems, making, it's something I talked about, I can't remember, yesterday, that designers, especially in South Africa, but I think around the world, are expected to be creative designers with a brilliant idea. They also have to wear the business manager's hat. They have to be accountants. They have to be packaging people. They have to be logistics specialists. And when you're starting up and you don't have huge funds, how do you wear all of those hats and do them as successfully as you can? But the idea really is try and get help wherever you can, realize the value of going to the best photographer to shoot your product, even if it really, really hurts. It should hurt to get those bits right so that you are giving your product the very best possibility you can. Get business advice. Call up somebody who you really respect and admire and say, will you give me half an hour's input on the phone, on Skype? That's all I'm asking, and it will move me forward that much further. So I think be as creative as you can about solving all the problems of your business, communicating them efficiently and quickly. And we have really been blown away by the variety. We had a really tough judging session, didn't we? And we'd like to stand up and tell everybody why we thought that we would have liked them to be in the final selection of people, because everybody, you got here for a reason. So everybody is a winner already, and just congratulations. It's been really exciting for me to be a part of it. Thanks.
So it just gets worse when you're the last speaker and you have such great accomplishments ahead of you. So my name is Dash. My mission in life is to create more fundable startups. Now, what does that mean? And I'm from Malaysia. And I would like to acknowledge my colleagues who are here from Malaysia, who have come all the way for the competition. So what does that mean, and what do I do? I was sitting with my dad just before I got here about 2 weeks ago. I was traveling, and he's suffering from an Alzheimer's. So I got to make things simple for him, to explain to him what I do, because his theory has been, if you cannot explain what you do to a 5-year-old, you don't know what you're doing. So it was like that. So I said to him that what I actually do by creating fundable startups is that I am planting tomato seeds. And then I grow the seeds and then sell it to the stores. And these tomato seeds are young entrepreneurs, and we try to nurture them, and then we hope they would become creative, become fundable enough to be sold to the stores who are like Google or Zynga or Apple or any of the big organizations. So that is the mission. And the platform in which I do it from is called Startup Malaysia. Startup Malaysia is basically a not-for-profit platform that I created out of my inspiration. The inspiration came from 2 places. One was, in 2010, I was invited by the Obama administration. Actually, the president hosted something called the Presidential Summit on Entrepreneurship. And 250 entrepreneurs were invited to discuss how do you democratize entrepreneurship around the developing country. And I was one of them who was there. And that's when I conceptualized Startup Malaysia. The other inspiration was I was very inspired on thinking, how do actually entrepreneurs come to be entrepreneurs? We look at the media, and what do you guys possibly read is, okay, this guy woke up in the morning with a brilliant idea. He ran to a garage. He put all his ideas together, wrote a business plan, and then he took it to the first angel investor who invested 20% or $2 million in him, and then he took it to, he developed his product, and then went to a venture capitalist, and then he blew up his company and grew the company, and then sold it, and went IPO and became a billionaire. I mean, this is the story that we hear about startups, right? But actually, that's not what really happens to a startup. The guy basically gets up and he fumbles around with a few ideas. So I went to study entrepreneurship. I went back to study entrepreneurship, and what happened was that I learned that the entrepreneurs actually start like what Jack was saying, that building the aeroplane in the air by starting who do you know, who you are, and what you know. And that's how entrepreneurs basically start. And from there, they basically iterate the ideas, get more customer feedback, and then they go back and work on it and fail fast, and then build it again and do it again and again. And so where does the business plan come in? So the business plan only comes in when you have gained some kind of traction. So this is what I've learned from entrepreneurship. I started about 20 years ago. At that time, there was no internet, and started 2 companies, and I sold both of them in 5 years. It was a nice exit, and I didn't know what I was going to do next, and then started the 3rd company that was to help young people think entrepreneurially. So we went around training about 10,000 kids in rural Malaysia with the government and private sector participation. And now we are going to launch what we call as the coding renaissance. I think I've been actually telling the government of Malaysia that you can't really create high-growth entrepreneurs if you don't have young people who go back to coding and programming. So this is what we are going to do next. So that's essentially my story. And so the panel discussion today is about whether entrepreneurs everywhere are the same, and also what challenges that I see. Essentially, the most important thing is that how do you define the problem that you are trying to solve? I think the entrepreneurs have to spend a lot of time in thinking about, okay, this is the problem that I'm going to solve, and is there a real pain in that problem? Or is that a solution chasing after a problem kind of thing? So what we saw in the business plan is that a lot of you have truly thought about that, about, okay, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. The second thing is disruption. Whether, does it really change anything? Or is it just another Me Too business? If you just take a look at it, with the 3 billionth person going to be online anytime soon, I think it's the best opportunity for you to be a high-growth entrepreneur, because 30 years ago or 50 years ago, it cost so much money to start a company. Today, it just costs almost nothing. You could go into a garage and immediately start a company. And the upside is so huge of starting a company. And to me, that is the biggest opportunity. And the fact that there are so many of you who have the glint in the eye and wanting to become an entrepreneur is really an exciting thing to see. And the last thing that I would like to say that is the emerging markets is going crazy. The entrepreneurs there are really, really hungry, and they're trying to build solutions every day. They're selling their mother's jewelry and raising money and whatever it is. Now, I think there are 3 things that is the cause of this. One is that they are already in a very vibrant, hungry economy. The second thing is that talent and resources are mobile. It moves where there is maximum returns. And the third thing is something very difficult to quantify, but which I think I see it here, is the attitude that there is nothing else to lose. And I think if you have that in your gut, that I've got nothing to lose, I think you become a great entrepreneur. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We have about 10 minutes before we take our lunch break. I'd like to begin by asking all of you something. Minister of Culture, Uffe Elbæk, he kept stressing that he was speaking from a Danish, a Scandinavian point of view, stressing that there's a difference somehow between how it is to be an entrepreneur here compared to maybe some of the more emerging markets. Do you think it's easier to be an entrepreneur in societies that are still at a need to have level compared to societies where it's moved on to only nice to have?
No, you go for it.
I think that entrepreneurship is not, in my view, is not something that it's not a job, it's a state of mind, right? So, and society, there's always, what shall I say, there's always a need to create something new, always a need to keep moving forward. So I think an entrepreneurial energy is something that is necessary. I don't know whether I'm answering your question, whether you are in an emerging society or you're already in a developed world, because if you don't keep moving, I think you're just going to regress and you're going to have your lunch taken by someone.
I'm not speaking for the whole of Western Europe, but I think that it's even Western European countries that look all kind of glossy and shiny and well-funded, we have employment issues. You know, we have economic problems too. So I think one of the important commonalities is that, and someone had a slide up yesterday, I think, that said that what was the net job creation in the US?
Oh, Jonathan's
thing. Yeah, it was amazing. Like in the last, all the net job creation in the US is from companies under 5 years old. So that is a massively important. But that is us. We're making jobs, all of us, whichever country around the world that you're in, and we're creating employment and we're creating revenue for that part of the world. So I think there are similarities in many cases more than differences at the early stage of setting something up.
I'm probably one of the few people here who is not an entrepreneur in any way, and I've never been near it. But from what I'm hearing, it's, of course, a lot of hard work. And everyone keeps saying you have to be realistic. But can you be an entrepreneur without also being a dreamer?
So I will try to take this quickly. So they say that there is a saying that behind every successful man is a woman, or you could say it the other way as well. But talking about whether it's hard work, I think behind every startup entrepreneur is either a wailing mother or a distressed wife, hoping that the son or husband would come to his senses quickly. So, so that's one of the things that I noticed that you wanted to.
You have. Steve Jobs said it at a great speech once that you need to kind of stay hungry and be foolish. You have to dream ridiculous things.
Yeah.
Like on one hand, we could sit down and counsel you with your business plans. You need to be more realistic. You need to shape this. Look at what the competition are doing. But if you do that too much, you'll kill the momentum. So there's a healthy balance, I think, between being a dreamer of dreams and being realistic.
But I think that thing that drives you is that fantasy and that picture and that goal, and that's the motivation behind everything, I think.
Yeah.
We're all on a mission. I mean, you guys are on a mission, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I think to be an entrepreneur, you have to inherently be somewhat dissatisfied with the way things are now, or really desperately seek to see them in a different way. And to do that, you really have to imagine a different world. You all have very vivid imaginations, so I think imagination and dreaming, whatever you want to call it, it's almost crucial. Otherwise,
imagining a different world and also believing slightly irrationally that we can change it.
Absolutely.
Egotistically.
Irrational belief.
I think it's the imbalance of the entrepreneur between being a dreamer and being a realistic person that keeps him at the edge of the seat all the time.
And that sort of seeds the conversation about risk as well. So one of the challenges I've had as the business has grown, and I'm passing responsibility on to guys that work for me, is that they are not entrepreneurs, and I find it very difficult to trust them because for me they don't take enough risks. They're not embracing a bit of danger and failure in the same way that we've all done it. I mean, we're sitting up here, 10, 15 years into businesses that have worked, but we're obviously not telling you about the 50 things we did that failed along the way today. But they're good. That's part of the tapestry of it. So. Yeah, epic fails all for 20 years and one success is where I am.
Jack Horner, you mentioned that you think that at least at the startup of a business, it's you have more in common in different countries, in different regions than things that separate. Could you please elaborate a bit on that? What do you think you have in common being an entrepreneur in the United Kingdom and in Malaysia, and when when do the differences step in?
I see you're going to question me. So when you say things, you need to be able to back them up. Right, so I think that when you boil it down to it's, we've almost said it. Like we as all of us, as entrepreneurs, we spot a problem and we try and figure out a solution using all our creative powers and all the inspiration and the stuff that's around us, and then we believe we can fix it. And that's what every single presentation did so well. You know, whether it succeeds or fails, hey, you know, that's part of the game we're all in. But that's what unites us, is that belief that we can change something. And what differentiates us, I guess, is access to funding and investment and support from kind of government organisations, and how willing society is to kind of embrace entrepreneurialism versus just joining a workforce in a kind of post-industrial sense. So, but yeah, I think it's everyone here. I mean, you've all seen each other's presentations now, right? And there is common ground, even from the most diverse corners of the world, and super premium couture products right the way down to local projects in school, you know, but there are similarities between all of these things. They just cost different amounts.
I'd like to ask you all, I'm sure you've all traveled the world a lot. If you could have started up in another country, what would it be?
So, okay, I'll try. So it's like an entrepreneur is something like a chef who likes to cook, right? And there are two types of chef. One is he says, okay, this is what I want to eat, and then I go to the restaurant, buy the stuff, and cook. And the other type of chef is the one who opens the fridge and says, these are the things that's in the fridge, and then I will come up with a menu that would suit me. And most entrepreneurs, they call them effectual entrepreneurs. They just basically start with what they have in their hands, who they know, and what they know. So whether it is in Malaysia, Indonesia, Kenya, UK, or anywhere else, I think the process is the same. My family moved from Kuala Lumpur. We had everything in Malaysia that we were happy about, to Australia, in Perth. And the first few months I was quite bored and wondering, what am I going to do here? Maybe I should literally plant tomatoes or strawberries. But what happened was that I started the same process of getting to know people and doing things and finding a real need in the market. And we have, within a year, launched an accelerator program there. So I think context doesn't, it's adapting to the context that is most important here. That's how I think.
I mean, I've worked in 3 different careers, 2 in England and 1 now in South Africa, and I think what the common thread through them all is working with people and being inspired by people's ideas and dreams and capabilities, and how to bounce off and relate to that and shape that and interact with it. And I think that for me probably is the common thread of wherever I went in the world. I would want to interact with a variety of people and really understand what makes them unique and different. And I wouldn't be the same person who could go into an office and sort of work with a computer and it would only be about that work. So yes, wherever I was and however it played out, that would be it for me, I think.
It's a difficult question. I think, having been a marketeer and working with consumer brands in the kind of commercial sector for so long, you start, as you get older and you have kids and stuff, you start to feel more and more responsible and more guilty for selling people Coca-Cola for 20 years. But not that Coke's, bad. They do good things. We help. By the way, you should all try it. It's great. But they do support a lot of great initiatives, and hopefully that's one of the things that we help them do. But I think if I was to do it again, I would like to be somewhere where I can make an impact in a more simple way. My business, if I could scream at you all, focus, because that is a very important thing to do in these early stages. And yet I'm probably an example of the least focused person I know. So I would like to do something simple in a place where I could make a genuine impact. And I guess that would probably be in the developing world somewhere. There are economic challenges in Europe, but there are bigger human issues in the rest of the world. So I think that's.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to think about, where would you choose to start? Because I think in so many ways now it's almost impossible. And I think I heard this a lot in many of your presentations, where you said, well, I thought I would start in my home country, but I saw a real need here, or I got more demand from here. And when I first started, I honestly thought that I would get fresh paper to villages in India, like where my grandmother was from, to people in Africa, to areas where there was really no access to refrigeration. And today, we sell fresh paper within the United States, but I never expected that we would be shipping to Europe and New Zealand, and that those would be our biggest markets. I've never even been to New Zealand. But because of the internet, because of the connectivity that we have today, I think the world really is your marketplace. And that's also what's really exciting about all of your businesses and the time in which you are today, because to some extent, you could be anywhere you want, whether or not you're physically there. I think it's a really remarkable kind of opportunity in that way, and it's never been like that before.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.